The era of ancient Greece is vastly distant from modern times, with significant differences in lifestyles and attitudes. Yet, many customs and traditions have persisted to this day. Throughout history, stories of same-sex love in ancient Greece have been a popular topic among experts, inspiring a wide range of scholarly perspectives. This video will explore the origins and development of same-sex love in ancient Greece through symposia, social activities, and artworks. As early as 3000 BC, the Minoan-Mycenaean civilization near the Mediterranean laid the groundwork for the flourishing ancient Greek civilization that followed. According to historical records, many archaeological findings from the 8th and 7th centuries BC show rites of passage connected to the affection between men and young boys. Today, scholars refer to this affection as same-sex love, a concept distinct from what is now called homosexuality. Yet, the origins of this type of love are still debated. One theory suggests that this form of same-sex love originated with the ancestors of the ancient Greeks, passing down as a tradition. However, this theory is not widely accepted, as it seems less feasible than the idea of same-sex affection as a rite of passage. Another perspective draws on mythology to rationalize these rites. For example, Zeus was said to have brought a beautiful young mortal, Ganymede, to Olympus, granting him immortality so he could serve as Zeus's cupbearer. Notably, Zeus had never granted immortality to any mortal woman he admired. Similarly, the sun god Apollo tended cattle for 8 years to be near a handsome mortal, Admetus. In ancient Greek society, women's status became extremely low. For example, in the Odyssey, Telemachus, son of Odysseus, speaks to his mother Penelope, who has long awaited Odysseus's return, saying, "Now go back to your quarters, tend to your own tasks, the loom and the spindle, and tell the maids to do their work. Speech is the business of men, all men, and of me most of all, for I am the master of this house." His mother takes no offense at this, instead obeying him and returning to her weaving. With women in such a low social position, there was no exchange between men and women beyond producing offspring. Women held no legal or political standing, could not receive an education, discuss politics, or pursue love like men could. They were confined to caring for children, spinning, weaving, and housekeeping. Not only was there no notion of soulmates between men and women, but love between men and women was also considered shameful. Under these societal conditions, men were increasingly drawn to one another romantically. However, same-sex love between men in ancient Greece was not based on physical desire as understood today, but was deeply connected to admiration and the pursuit of wisdom and noble character. Another perspective posits that what was more common in ancient Greek society was actually pederasty. This relationship typically involved an adult male of around 30 and a boy between the ages of 12 and 18. Upon reaching a certain age, a young man would be taken by an older male to a secluded island for 2 months. During this period, the older man would instruct the youth in various survival skills, as well as impart life philosophy and moral principles. In return, the boy was expected to offer his body to satisfy the elder's physical needs. Originally, this arrangement was simply a regional population control method, but it unexpectedly popularized same-sex relationships among men. An interesting aspect of this relationship was the courtship process between the adult male and the youth. Generally, such courtship took place in male-exclusive spaces, like hunting grounds or gymnasiums. Typically, the adult male was expected to take the active role, while the youth was relatively passive. The elder would express his intentions, and the youth was expected to politely refuse at first. Immediate acceptance was seen as flirtatious, while too many refusals could lead to the elder losing interest. Once both parties agreed, the youth would introduce the elder to his parents, formally establishing the relationship. However, same-sex love in ancient Greece rarely occurred between two adult men. In such relationships, one partner had to be active and the other passive. If an adult male took the passive role, his social status would suffer, and he would be ridiculed as womanly. According to ancient Greek custom, after a meal men would drink and converse, discussing scholarly topics and various issues, accompanied by music, poetry, and dance, a gathering known as a symposium. Most attendees were adult men, though younger males were also present. While a small number of noble women were occasionally allowed, most women at symposia were slave women serving drinks or courtesans performing music and dance. The symposium was essentially an arena where adult men would discuss politics, current affairs, art, and philosophy. Younger men, meanwhile, could listen and learn from these discussions, absorbing new knowledge. When these youths reached adulthood, they did not go through any specific initiation ceremony. Instead, they could choose to be together with their older male lovers. Here, being together was not like a modern romantic partnership. In this relationship, the adult male was responsible for the youth's moral and intellectual development, treating him with kindness, understanding, warmth, and pure affection to cultivate the youth's moral perfection. The principle of this love held that since the lover helped the youth grow in knowledge and virtue, the youth should strive to reciprocate with gratitude. This love, believed to be inspired by the goddess Aphrodite, was considered noble and sacred, beneficial to society and individuals alike, and thus became part of ancient Greek education. This brings us to the famous concept of platonic love. Today, many people understand platonic love as primarily spiritual, devoid of excessive physical contact. However, in ancient Greece, this form of love existed exclusively between males and was viewed as noble. Even physical intimacy, when it occurred, was seen as an expression of the elevated nature of this love. When thinking of social activities in ancient Greece, one inevitably recalls its athletic competitions. Competing nude was one of the most distinctive aspects of ancient Greek sports, as male athletes of all ages and skill levels trained and competed without clothing. It is said that this tradition began when a runner lost his garment during a race. Unable to retrieve it in time, he continued running nude and captivated the crowd with his physique, thus sparking the practice of nude competition. As the saying goes, happiness is a man in love returning home after exercising nude to spend his days embraced by a beautiful youth. The Greek pursuit of beauty, whether in the athleticism of the male form or the physical charm of youths, fueled the prevalence of same-sex love between men and boys. The Iliad records the legendary Trojan War, which includes the famous relationship between the hero Achilles and his close companion Patroclus, a bond that has attracted much scholarly attention. Some believe their relationship exemplifies the classic bond between lover and beloved, while others argue that it goes beyond an educational bond, representing what would now be considered a true homosexual relationship. The Greek philosopher Plato described them as a model of passionate love. Achilles loved Patroclus so deeply that, after Patroclus's death, he held a series of athletic games, the highest honor for his fallen friend. In the following battles, Achilles sought revenge, personally killing Hector and dragging his body for 3 weeks. He even stated in his will that he wished to have his ashes buried together with those of Patroclus. In military life, soldiers were all men, and many of them spent decades without seeing a woman. To fulfill their physical needs, they turned to same-sex relationships as a substitute for heterosexual ones. A passage from an unnamed play by the comedic playwright Eupolis describes the hardships faced by Greek soldiers at Troy. Not a single one of them had ever seen a prostitute, and they spent 10 years satisfying themselves. They felt the hardships of military service. They conquered a city but lost much of life's pleasures. And They never saw a high-class courtesan, so they were left to take care of their needs among men, to the point that their anuses became wider than the gates of Troy. Historically, there was also a particularly formidable army known as the Sacred Band of Thebes. This army was composed of 150 pairs of male lovers. Thebes recruited soldiers based on 3 criteria: same-sex orientation, romantic bonds, and exceptional combat prowess. On the battlefield, each lover fought fiercely, either to avoid being shamed in front of his beloved or to protect him. This unique military unit created countless legendary victories in history, often triumphing over larger forces. Many famous sculptures, painted pottery, temples, and other artifacts have been excavated from ancient Greece, such as the Discobolus, discus thrower, and the Parthenon. These pieces reflect the overall social atmosphere and economic status of the time. Some sculptures, however, serve as evidence of the existence of same-sex love in ancient Greece. For example, in the illustration shown, it is clearly a depiction of an adult male and a youth holding hands and appearing to be in an excited state. In the ruins of the Apollo Karneos temple on Thera Island, where Spartans once settled, inscriptions have been unearthed documenting certain male-male relations. Many vases also feature depictions of courtship and physical interactions between men. These artifacts are not coincidental. Rather, they serve as solid evidence of the real presence of same-sex love in ancient Greece. It is worth noting that male same-sex relationships in ancient Greece had positive impacts on both politics and the military. The same-sex love communities in Greece were composed of educators and students supplying wise minds for political governance. On the battlefield, same-sex lovers like Achilles often fought with all their might for those they loved. In the view of the ancient Greeks, same-sex love was as essential as friendship and wisdom, an important element of life. At that time, society held an open attitude toward these relationships, seeing them as a virtue. However, different cultures and eras have varying perspectives on same-sex relationships, and understanding this topic requires consideration of the historical and cultural context. In modern society, ancient Greek same-sex love did not continue for several reasons. First, social attitudes have changed significantly over time. With historical development, views on love, gender, and family have evolved greatly. The same-sex love of ancient Greece was limited to relationships between adult men and youths, which would now be considered an issue of child protection. Second, cultural differences. While most modern societies are increasingly accepting of homosexuality, that form of same-sex love does not align with contemporary norms. Third, changes in social roles. Today, it is inconceivable for someone like Odysseus' son to publicly silence his mother, Penelope. Gender equality has progressed considerably, and both heterosexual and homosexual relationships now uphold equal regard for women. Unlike in ancient Greece, where same-sex love was exclusively a male domain, this exclusivity makes it difficult to align with modern values. Although this form of same-sex love is no longer present today, it remains a significant marker of ancient Greek society with lasting historical influence. It is important to note that when examining male same-sex love in ancient Greece, one must carefully distinguish it from modern concepts of homosexuality. The nature of these relationships had a unique social and historical context that cannot be conflated with the modern understanding of homosexuality.